Tonight, call it lost in translation. An attempt by the city to be inclusive falls flat.
This makes no sense. It's in fact illegible.
Toronto Waste Management sends out calendars with incorrect translations in several different languages. Plus,
the amount of stress that people have been under over the last year has been incredible.
As the final vehicles roll off the assembly line, thousands of GM workers in Oshawa wonder what's next. And a group of Toronto teens using music and a special cookbook to start a conversation about gun violence in their community. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. We begin tonight in Scarborough, where police are investigating after a man in his 30s was found shot in his car. The wounded man crashed his vehicle into a pole in the area of Scarborough Golf Club Road and Newark Road. That's just south of Ellesmere. Police were called to the scene just before 8 o'clock tonight. They say the man was slumped over the wheel of his car and unresponsive when officers found him. He was then rushed to hospital with very serious injuries. Well, there's some embarrassed faces at Toronto City Hall tonight after an attempt to be inclusive has backfired spectacularly. It all concerns the city's 2020 waste management calendar. The city mailed out hundreds of thousands of copies and even had it printed in 7 different languages. But in some cases, it wasn't translated properly. In others, it's just impossible to read. Greg Ross explains.
This makes no sense. It's in fact illegible.
Maliha Wilson is an advisor to the Canadian Tamil Congress. She says information printed in the city's 2020 waste management calendar is gibberish.
They've got Tamil characters in what are supposedly Tamil characters that don't exist. So you can't even read a single word in here. So I don't know what happened.
They're not following the Tamil alphabet?
Definitely not.
The calendar has information printed in 7 different languages. The city acknowledges that mistakes were made in the translation of at least 2 of them.
That is unacceptable, and we apologize for that. That should not happen.
City spokesperson Brad Ross says mistakes were made in both Tamil and Farsi. The city hired a third-party company to translate the information, but he says the company wasn't responsible for the errors. He says the problems only happened after they transferred the files back to city staff.
In translating those blurbs in Farsi and Tamil, what happened was that the files, those translation files, became corrupted. It was the typesetting and design process that ended up corrupting those files.
But Wilson doesn't buy the city's explanation.
It's a governmental agency. There's an obligation to get it right. And they have all the resources available, and they should do that.
Wilson says city staff must be aware of how offensive a mistake like this can be, especially to Tamil Canadians who risk their lives to protect their language.
Many Tamils came to Canada because they had to flee, because their lives were in danger. And one of the reasons why Tamils were discriminated against was because they were fighting to preserve their language.
We're the most diverse city in the world. There are responsibilities that go with that.
The mayor also acknowledged the mistake today, introducing a motion at City Council to take steps that would make sure this doesn't happen again. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
It is the end of an era for the General Motors plant in Oshawa. Today, after more than 100 years in the city, the last GM truck rolled off the production line. Tonight, many of the plant's 2,600 employees are trying to figure out how to move forward. Now, one of them shared with us this photo of the final truck making its way down the assembly line. We spoke with an employee who was there for that bittersweet moment.
It was rough. It was pretty depressing. The people all kind of gathered together in there, and we kind of held each other together and just proudly stood there and watched her go down the line as the last few people that were there were building what they had to build. There was no delay in anything. It was just like everybody had a job to do, and they got to her and got it done.
As production wrapped up inside, outside, a grassroots group held a rally trying to raise awareness of their own plan for the plant's future. They want the federal and provincial governments to invest in an electric vehicle company to build government fleet vehicles. GM says while the plant is closing, it's not leaving Oshawa and will invest in research and development.
As we look to the future of the auto industry, it's all about R&D and tech. And with our engineering center located right in Oshawa and this new test track, that evolution is going to continue. So Oshawa will continue to be alive and vibrant. and GM will continue to be one of the largest private sector employers in the region.
And in the new year, GM will also open a smaller stamping facility. It'll make panels and parts for older GM vehicles and will employ about 300 workers. The Toronto man accused of dumping buckets of feces on 5 people last month is out tonight on bail.
I can't say the public is protected not because I don't think it, I think they are, but that's not my role. My role is to put together a plan that, in my view, is one that the public can be confident in, and I think I've done that today.
23-year-old Samuel Opoku is facing multiple charges, including 5 counts of assault with a weapon. He allegedly threw buckets of liquefied fecal matter at people in 3 separate attacks. 2 of those occurred inside university libraries. Opoku is due back in court on Monday. And it's back to school tomorrow, and the 10 school boards hit by the latest one-day strike called by Ontario public high school teachers, their 3rd job action in as many weeks. Today's one-day strike will be the union's final job action of 2019, but the president of the OSSTF says the union has not ruled out taking further job action in the new year. Harvey Bishop says the union will make that decision when it resumes talks with the government in January. He would not rule out a full strike if the union and government can't reach a contract agreement. A Toronto community held a get-together today centered around food and music. This had nothing to do with the holidays. Instead, it was the latest effort by some high school students to try to combat gun violence in their neighborhood by getting people to open up to each other over a meal. Natalie Nanowski has the details.
Please put the guns down. Angelica Sutton writes poetry about gun violence and mental health.
I had a shooting that happened right beside my house.
And she's not the only one.
I'm living in an area that has a lot of gun violence already, but it affects me because you don't know if you're gonna walk down the street and then somebody just has a drive-by and then shoots you.
That's not a fear most people have in this city, but in Weston.
Within the last week of October and in the first week of November, there were 10 shootings in this community,
including one where shooters entered an apartment building, sending 5 teens to hospital. The youth in the area wanted to speak out through tonight's performance. They prepared for months, holding dialogue sessions to talk about their realities.
They came up with this project in which they would be having conversations around violence in their community while eating a meal.
They even made those meals together, putting the recipes into a cookbook, each one highlighting a tough topic.
My favorite is the one, Don't Jerk Me Around, and that they did a jerk chicken. There was another one which was talking about black eyed peas, and it was talking about, women, the cycle of violence and getting that black eye, which is a sign of violence.
Because there are gun, people's lives have turned into nightmares.
Peace is the key, but we can't make peace if we don't work together.
The hope is that those who commit the crimes listen to this team's approach and sit down for a meal and a discussion. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
Carla Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. Bitterly cold overnight.
It sure is, Mike, and when we have numbers like we're going to be seeing, it's a concern. So an extreme cold weather alert in place for the city. It happens if temperatures fall to -15 or colder and a wind chill of -20 or colder. So tonight we're going to do that. And if you're wondering, well, what am I looking at here? Then these numbers are nothing like that. These are the daytime highs. They just didn't come in the afternoon. These are from back towards midnight, 1 a.m. last night, and then into the afternoon, the temperature fell to -9, -10, and then continuing to go down. We're headed to that low of -15. Some of those streamers still continuing, but then backing off eventually overnight because the winds continue to ease up on us as well. We'll see some cloud cover and flurries going through the GTA into the day tomorrow, especially towards the middle part of the day, but by Friday we should get into some sunshine. There you go, feeling like -22 tonight, Mike. And tomorrow afternoon, -7, but still feeling that wind chill will be -12.
Bit of a cold spell. Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
Toronto's Centre for Addiction and Mental Health says it's working on a plan to improve security. It comes after several high-profile cases this summer where patients walked away from CAMH.
What occurred over summer harmed the place. The patients felt hurt. I had patients in tears and many of the staff going about their business, getting questions in coffee shops about what are you people doing.
Now, some of the recommendations from an expert review include creating a secure perimeter around the mental health facility, improving communication with Toronto Police, and working with patients to ensure they understand the PASS system, which is undergoing changes. We are learning more about the man accused of killing his mother after a fatal fire in Etobicoke last week. Joel Vassell appeared briefly in court today, where police upgraded his charge of arson to first-degree murder for the death of his mother. 61-year-old Yvonne Batchelor Vassell was a nurse at CAMH and was found dead in her home last Wednesday. Now, court documents show her son, the man accused in her murder, was also accused of trying to kill his grandmother. In 2014, Vassell had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, was under a doctor's care, and was prescribed medication. He was arrested by police on a number of occasions, including when he told police that he felt his mother was trying to poison him and that he may harm her. At the end of 2014, Vassell approached his mother with a knife after an argument and punched her several times. He was arrested and released on bail. A month later, Vassell broke into his 95-year-old grandmother's house and attacked her with a knife. He was found not criminally responsible for charges of assault with a weapon and attempted murder. Vassell was detained at Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care in Penetanguishene. In 2018, he was let out, lived in community housing, and even went to Seneca College for a semester. For allegedly killing his mom, he will remain in jail and return to court next month. The family asked for privacy, but in a statement to CBC, they said in part, "It is important that Joel Vassell remain in custody and is not released into the community."
I know of a few drivers who have left because they've been scared, and they said it's not worth it. They have families, young children. I am scared to go on the highway.
Tow truck operators in Ontario say the industry is a dangerous free-for-all. We'll tell you why many say it's become an all-out turf war after the break. Some tow truck operators in Ontario say the industry is a dangerous free-for-all, with drivers being shot at and even threatened, all in the name of a tow truck turf war. Many in the industry are pointing at a lack of regulations. They say almost anyone can hop into a tow truck and head to a crash scene. Angelina King spoke with some drivers who say the situation is getting worse.
After nearly 30 years on the job, Gord has been to some scary scenes, but now he fears for his own safety. He says he's been assaulted and threatened both on and off the job.
I know of a few drivers who have left because they've been scared, and they said it's not worth it. They have families, young children. I am scared to go on the highway.
CBC Toronto isn't using Gord's last name or the name of his company over concerns for his safety. His company doesn't send drivers to crashes on provincial highways. Other drivers, known as accident chasers, listen to radios and watch social media. Then they rush to be first on scene, causing chaos.
You'll have 5-6 trucks show up, and then some of these guys will get into arguments over who's getting it. You know, you'll get drivers fighting and arguing and punching each other and stuff.
And it isn't just violence at crash scenes. Just yesterday, 3 tow trucks were set on fire in Hamilton. One owner told CBC he believes he was targeted over an ongoing turf war. The Provincial Towing Association of Ontario says the problem is at a tipping point and says organized crime is a factor.
We've had murders, vehicles burned. It hasn't escalated outside the industry, but we really want to try to get a handle on this before it does.
Last week, a tow truck driver was shot at in a GO commuter parking lot in Richmond Hill. Police are still looking for a suspect. And in the summer, Toronto police arrested tow truck drivers in connection with an organized crime investigation.
Tow trucks smashed their way through the front of jewelry stores and firearms were discharged.
Police said they seized guns from operators who were prepared to shoot other drivers over territory. The association wants the government to implement provincial licenses and stricter regulations.
There's lots of vehicles that are ill-equipped for doing the job, that are servicing people on the roads. I could put you in a tow truck right now and send you out on the road and go and do police calls, and there's no accountability.
In a statement, the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services says it'll be reviewing the Consumer Protection Act next year, saying it may consider potential changes to towing, but licensing is not included. Of the 444 municipalities in Ontario, only 17 have their own bylaws and regulations, and those in the industry say they're rarely followed.
If there is no plan by the police department, then it is chaos.
Joey Gagné says the focus should be on all parties creating an accident plan that's enforced by police, so
we know who's going to come, we know who's going to do the job, we know what the price is going to be, and nobody's subject to the whims of some person that comes out and is potentially going to take advantage of it.
Gord wants consumers to know they don't have to use the first tow truck that appears after a crash. His advice?
If you can get your car off to the shoulder, that would be the best thing to do, and call your insurance company and let them recommend a towing company for you and a place to go.
He's afraid the few bad apples of the industry are giving everyone a bad name. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto pet owner is warning other animal lovers about the fine print in pet insurance. That's after finding out that despite paying the same monthly fee, her now elderly dog will suddenly have much less coverage than before. As Lisa Shing tells us, that's after paying tens of thousands of dollars in premiums.
Meet Hope, a Shih Tzu poodle mix getting up in years. To prepare for this, her owner bought pet insurance. Over the last decade, she's paid about $30,000 on premiums for these two.
We wanted insurance so that money wouldn't be a deciding factor in the health care that we provide.
13-year-old Hope takes daily medication for her diabetes. Pancreatitis and a partially blocked gallbladder sent her to the vet this past summer. It could again.
It's not a pet, it's a family member. So whether they're my real children or these guys, they deserve the best possible care. And without the insurance, it's much harder to do.
Rebecca Schuster says she feels abandoned by her insurer, PetSecure, after it told her it's lowering its coverage amount from 80% to 50% as of January 1st. Yet it still expects her to pay the same $155 a month premium and a $500 annual deductible.
They told me that I should be lucky that they didn't cancel her insurance altogether. They shouldn't be allowed to just do whatever they want, for their bottom dollar.
But the company can change the coverage. In an email to CBC News, PetSecure's parent company said it does not change its policies based on the age or health diagnoses of pets. Rather, it reviews policies on a rolling 2-year period and points out Hope's coverage has changed in the past. This lawyer warns anyone buying pet insurance should do their research.
They should read the fine print, and they should discuss with either a lawyer or the veterinarian what is covered and what's not.
Schuster says if she had known the company could change her coverage, she would have just saved up money for her dog's health care instead, and wants the government to more tightly regulate the industry. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
My brother just came and started crying. I just woke up and I was surprised. I was like, what's happening?
This grade 11 student only learned CPR a few days before. Next thing he knew, he was using it to save his father's life. We'll have that incredible story in just a few minutes.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Well, the Raptors in Detroit tonight facing former coach Dwayne Casey. Now, opening quarter, Marc Gasol running back to play defense on the left there. Watch him. He grabs the back of his leg, immediately indicates something is wrong. He leaves the game with a left hamstring strain and does not return. Raptors up in the third here. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson causes a turnover. He leaves it for Pascal Siakam. A nice two-handed slam. Toronto once again pushing the ball up the floor. Nice bounce pass by Lowry to Ibaka, who soars in for the dunk. But then in the fourth, more trouble. Norman Powell gets caught by the screen, top of your screen there. Blake Griffin screening him there. He leaves after the game after appearing to hurt his left shoulder. But Toronto goes on to win this. It's third in a row, 112-99. Colette Kennedy is back with her extended forecast from the middle of this cold spell, but it is just short-lived.
It is pretty short-lived. That's right, Mike. So yeah, this Arctic air has moved in on us. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, we are looking at that extreme cold weather alert for the city because of the temperatures and the wind chills we're seeing. But with the winds easing up, they've begun to, but they will further overnight. That really helps with the snow squall activity, so that backs off. And it's only a few days before we will find that mild air will be coming back at us. So we got to get there first. You can still see a little bit of the squall activity, but then see how that recedes as we go towards tomorrow morning because the winds won't be nearly as strong. And we do have some cloud cover to start the day, and then just a little batch there of some flurry activity going through late morning into the afternoon. So we'll keep a bit of that cloud cover as well early Friday. But then Friday, as we move into the day, there should be quite a bit of sunshine. So even though it's still going to be pretty crisp, it's going to be quite nice to have all of that sun. Overnight tonight, we have mostly clear conditions, some flurries certainly towards Sarnia, and also still looking at that potential through London with some of those squalls until they're fully backed off. But minus 18 in terms of how it feels overnight. And there you go tomorrow afternoon, minus 2. Should still be quite a bit of cloud cover, but we may get into a little more sunshine into the afternoon, feeling like minus 7 for you there in Windsor. There are the numbers overnight tonight around the GTA. So the mild spot, there isn't one, but St. Catharines minus 14, minus 16 into Markham, feeling like minus 22. We certainly meet that criteria for extreme cold weather alert. And even tomorrow afternoon with some light flurries, they should be somewhat scattered in nature, nothing too significant, but those temperatures really cannot warm up. And so the cold air stays into tomorrow. We look ahead towards Friday, minus 5, so it's getting a little better. However, it gets a lot better on Saturday. And there we go, mix of sun and cloud. The first official day of winter comes in late on Saturday evening. And then Sunday, partly cloudy skies, 4 degrees. Monday, we'll have kind of a mix of sun and cloud and 4 degrees. So as we get closer to Christmas, we're actually going to see the temperatures getting warmer, and as we actually get into winter, Mike.
And all that snow on the ground melting, so possible green Christmas maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
A 17-year-old student in Windsor is being hailed as a hero after he saved his father's life by performing CPR. Now here's the thing, he just learned that skill a few days before.
And I start to do CPR and the compression. I do the much that I can, and I also call 911.
Turkey Ayash took a 2-day CPR class back in November as part of his phys ed class in high school. He put those skills to use 2 days later when his 49-year-old father, Ahmed, suffered a heart attack. Ayash performed chest compressions to maintain his father's blood flow, which is what paramedics say saved his father's life. Now, apparently his teacher thought it was surreal when he went to school the following Monday, saying that he used what he learned in class the week before to save his dad's life on the weekend. That's our newscast for tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow night at 11. Good night.